Have you ever panicked over a delayed reply? Felt like someone pulling away was the start of the end? Or apologized, not because you were wrong, but because you were afraid they'd leave? That's not just overthinking. That's abandonment fear, and it runs deeper than you think. It doesn't just show up during breakups. It's there in the way you text, in the way you overthink a glance, in the way you always ask, "Are we okay?" even when things seem fine. It's the constant need for reassurance, the deep fear that love is fragile, that people are temporary, and that no matter how good things feel, someone always leaves. This fear isn't loud. It's not always obvious, but it drives so many of our choices. Who we chase, who we stay with, what we tolerate. It's the voice in the back of your mind whispering, "Don't get too comfortable. They might leave." And that whisper is powerful. Where does it come from? The fear of abandonment is almost never born in adulthood. It's planted in childhood, when love was inconsistent or conditional, when someone who was supposed to protect you left, or hurt you, or made love feel like something you had to earn. Maybe a parent walked away, or maybe they were there physically, but never emotionally. Maybe you were praised for being quiet, obedient, easy, and when you needed more attention, comfort, emotional safety, you were met with rejection, or punishment, or silence. So you learn not to need too much, not to expect too much. You learned to settle for crumbs because crumbs were all you knew. Your brain is smart. It remembers pain, and it works to avoid it. So it builds a system, a radar. It begins scanning every interaction for danger. That radar becomes your emotional compass. And even years later, you're still using it, subconsciously, to survive. You start to read too much into silence. You panic when someone pulls back, even slightly. You replay conversations in your head. You fear the pause between messages. You wonder what you did wrong. Even when you did nothing, you become hypervigilant, constantly watching for signs that someone's about to leave. That love is about to disappear. Again. And here's the thing. This fear doesn't just make you clingy. It can also make you cold. Because vulnerability means risk. So you love with one foot out the door. You test people. You push them away to see if they'll come back. You sabotage connections just to prove to yourself that people always leave. It's not because you want to. It's because you're scared. Because if they leave on your terms, it hurts a little less. You find yourself in this strange pattern. You want closeness, but it scares you. You want to trust, but trust feels like a setup. You crave love, but the moment it feels real, you shut down. It's the push-pull cycle. Come here. Now back off. Love me, but don't get too close. Don't get close enough to hurt me. This pattern becomes your normal. And after a while, you might even start to believe that love just isn't for you. That you're too broken, too needy, too much, or not enough. You internalize the fear. It becomes part of your identity. But here's the truth. You're not too much. You're not broken. You're carrying a wound. And like any wound, it can heal, but only when you stop pretending it doesn't hurt. Abandonment fear shapes the way you love, but it also shapes who you love. Because when you've been conditioned to believe that love is unstable, unpredictable, or something you must constantly fight for, you're more likely to be drawn to people who recreate that exact pattern. People who are inconsistent. People who give just enough to keep you hoping, but not enough to make you feel secure. You tell yourself it's chemistry, that the unpredictability makes it exciting, that the butterflies mean it's real. But what you're really feeling is anxiety, nervous system activation, the thrill of uncertainty. And because it feels so familiar, your body mistakes it for love. So you chase people who mirror your earliest emotional experiences. You feel drawn to those who don't choose you fully. You mistake emotional hunger for connection. You ignore red flags because some part of you believes that pain is a part of love. That love is supposed to hurt. That proving yourself is part of the process. This dynamic becomes especially dangerous when you meet someone emotionally unavailable. Because the more they pull away, the harder you try to make them stay. You overextend. You overgive. You abandon your own needs just to keep them around. And the more they retreat, the more you cling. It becomes a dance of desperation. And the worst part? You might convince yourself that their inconsistency is your fault. That if you were more attractive, more interesting, more lovable, they'd treat you better. But the truth is, their inability to show up consistently has nothing to do with your worth. Their distance isn't a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of their capacity. But when abandonment wounds run deep, logic doesn't help much. Because abandonment isn't just a fear. It's a nervous system reaction. It's your body going into panic mode. It's your brain flashing danger, even when you're safe. That's why it feels so uncontrollable, so overwhelming, so hard to explain. You might even sabotage good relationships without realizing it. Push away the people who treat you well, who don't trigger the same anxiety, because they feel unfamiliar, boring, too calm, too stable. You think it's too good to be true. You wait for the shoe to drop. Or worse, you create the chaos just to feel something that makes sense. This is how the fear of abandonment keeps you trapped. It makes chaos feel like comfort, and safety feel like a lie. But it doesn't have to be your forever. There's a silent pain that comes with abandonment fear. It's not just about being left. It's about what being left makes you believe about yourself. That you weren't enough. That you were too much. That if you had done more, said less, been quieter, easier, prettier, stronger, then maybe they would have stayed. It becomes personal, deeply personal, and the shame is heavy. You carry it like armor, always scanning your reflection for flaws, always trying to fix yourself before anyone else points out what you already believe is broken. But here's something no one tells you. Abandonment doesn't mean you're unworthy. It means someone else couldn't hold space for your humanity, your needs, your feelings, your complexity. That doesn't make you hard to love. It makes them incapable of loving well. Still, when abandonment becomes a pattern, it starts to seep into everything. You over-apologize. You say yes when you want to say no. You keep the peace, even if it means silencing yourself. You walk on eggshells because one wrong move might send someone running. You might even try to become perfect, not for growth, but for survival. Because if you're perfect, they won't leave, right? If you say the right things, dress the right way, never get upset, never ask for too much, maybe then they'll stay. But perfection is exhausting, and it's never enough. Because the people who are meant to leave will leave, whether you're flawless or flawed. And the people who are meant to stay, they'll stay even when you're messy, emotional, human. The fear of abandonment doesn't just show up in romantic relationships. It bleeds into friendships, workplaces, family dynamics. You might avoid conflict at all costs. You might ghost people before they ghost you. You might keep people at arm's length while secretly hoping they'll break through your walls. This fear convinces you to settle for less love, less respect, less connection, because deep down, you don't believe you can have more. And that belief becomes a cage. It keeps you from asking for what you need, from standing up for yourself, from leaving when something isn't good for you. But here's the thing, you were never meant to beg for love, to audition for belonging, to earn your right to exist in someone's life. Love isn't supposed to feel like a test you might fail. It's supposed to feel like home. You know that moment when you catch yourself holding your breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop? When everything feels peaceful, too peaceful, and instead of relaxing into it, your body tenses. Your mind races. You start picking at invisible flaws in the relationship, in yourself, creating problems where none exist. Because calm feels foreign. Safety feels suspicious. And part of you would rather light the whole thing on fire than sit with the terrifying possibility that this time, maybe, just maybe, you won't be left. This is what abandonment fear does. It doesn't just make you fear loss, it makes you fear keeping. Because if you keep something good, you'll have something real to lose. And that's the most terrifying thing of all. So you self-sabotage. You pick fights over nothing. You withdraw when they get too close. You create emotional distance before life can create physical distance. You reject them before they can reject you. It's not because you don't want love. It's because you want love so badly that the thought of losing it is unbearable. So you try to control the narrative, to prepare for the ending before it comes, to grieve a loss that hasn't happened and might never happen, just so it won't blindside you. Here's the cruel irony. In trying to protect yourself from abandonment, you abandon yourself first. You leave your own heart before anyone else can. You mute your needs. You swallow your truth. You become a stranger to yourself, all to make sure you're not left by someone else. But what if the way out isn't through more control? What if it's through surrender? Not surrender to them, but surrender to yourself, to your worth, to the truth that you can survive loss, that you've survived it before, that being left doesn't mean you're unlovable. It just means that person wasn't your home. Healing begins when you start choosing yourself even when no one else does. When you stop abandoning yourself to keep others. When you realize that the love you've been begging for from others is the love you needed to give yourself all along. This doesn't happen overnight. It's messy. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Some days you'll catch yourself falling into old patterns, overanalyzing texts, people-pleasing, bracing for impact. And that's okay. Healing isn't about perfection. It's about awareness. It's about pausing when the old panic rises and whispering to yourself, I'm not in danger. I'm not a child anymore. I can handle this. Slowly, you start to rewire the fear. You learn to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. You stop conflating anxiety with intuition. You begin to trust that love isn't something you have to earn. It's something you're allowed to receive. And one day, you'll realize something startling. The person you've been so afraid of losing, the one you've bent yourself into pretzels to keep, they were never the point. You were. The love you needed wasn't out there. It was inside you all along, waiting for you to come home. You don't heal in a straight line. There will be days when you wake up convinced you're over it, when the texts left on read don't claw at your ribs, when silence feels like quiet instead of abandonment. And then, out of nowhere, a song will play. A memory will surface. A name will pop up on your phone. And just like that, you're back there. Knees to your chest. Heart in your throat. That familiar voice hissing. See? You'll always be like this. This is the work no one talks about. Not the dramatic breakthroughs, but the quiet tremors that follow. The way healing feels like betrayal at first, like you're abandoning the very instincts that kept you alive. The way your body rebels when you try to trust, when you try to rest, when you dare to believe that love doesn't have to hurt to be real. Here's what they don't tell you. The fear won't vanish, but your relationship to it will change. One day, you'll notice the panic rise, that old, familiar tsunami, and instead of drowning in it, you'll stand waist deep and say, "Oh, it's you again." You'll recognize it for what it is. Not prophecy, not truth, just a wound whispering outdated survival tactics. You'll let it pass through you like weather instead of letting it build a home in your bones. This is how you reclaim your power, not by never feeling fear, but by refusing to let it dictate your worth. By looking at the people who left and finally understanding. Their leaving wasn't about your lack. It was about their limitations. By realizing that the love you've been chasing wasn't the love you needed. It was just the love you recognized. And then, slowly, painfully, beautifully, you'll start to make different choices. You'll walk away from half-love not with desperation, but with dignity. You'll stop romanticizing potential and start honoring what's real. You'll choose people who choose you, not as a last resort, but as a first priority. Not when it's easy, but when it matters. Most importantly, you'll stop abandoning yourself to keep others. You'll stop shrinking. You'll stop pretending. You'll stop begging for crumbs when you deserve the whole damn feast. This is the reckoning. The moment you realize you've survived every single goodbye, every ending you thought would destroy you, you're still here, still breathing, still capable of love. And that's the greatest rebellion of all, to love again. Not from fear, but from freedom. Not because you're empty, but because you're full. Because you finally know. You are not too much. You are not enough. You are a home. And no one gets to make you feel homeless again. Your hands will shake the first time you say no and mean it. The first time you don't chase. Don't beg. Don't twist yourself into something digestible for someone who only loves you in crumbs. There will be a terrible silence afterward, the kind that makes your bones ache. You'll stare at your phone like it's a grenade. You'll count the hours like they're sentences. You'll wonder if you've made a terrible mistake. But then, something miraculous will happen. You'll survive. Not just the leaving, the staying with yourself. You'll wake up one morning and realize the world didn't end. The love you thought would save you? It was never love. It was a lesson wearing love's face. And now you get to learn a new kind of love. One that doesn't taste like panic. One that doesn't sound like prove yourself or earn your place. One that feels like coming home to a house where all the doors are open, where no one makes you knock twice. You will meet someone someday who loves like the sun, not the scorching, desperate kind of heat, but the steady, inevitable kind. The kind that doesn't make you work for its light. And here's the terrifying part. It will feel wrong at first. Their consistency will feel like boredom. Their certainty will feel like a trap. Your body will scream danger at the absence of danger. You'll wait for the catch, the withdrawal, the other shoe to drop. But it won't. Day after day, they'll just keep loving you. Not perfectly, not flawlessly, but fully, without making you bleed for it. And one ordinary Tuesday, while they're making coffee or humming off key in the shower, it will hit you. This is what safety feels like. Not the absence of fear, but the presence of something stronger. You'll cry then, not the jagged sobs of abandonment, but the quiet tears of a child finally found. This is the alchemy, when your wounds stop being cages and become compasses. When the love that once shattered you becomes the love that reassembles you, piece by precious piece. You'll trace your scars with new fingers and whisper, "Thank you for keeping me alive, but I'll take it from here." And for the first time in your life, you will. If this video hit a nerve, if you saw yourself in these words, I need you to do one thing tonight. Just one. Look in the mirror, not to search for flaws, not to rehearse apologies. Look yourself in the eyes, really look, and say, you are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to need. You are allowed to stay. Because after years of training yourself to disappear, the bravest thing you can do is occupy your own life. Fully, unapologetically, without waiting for permission. The work isn't easy, but you're not alone in it. Smash that like button if this resonated with you. Not for the algorithm, but for the person in the comments who needs to know they're not broken. Subscribe to BrainTrap TV. We're rewiring toxic thought patterns one episode at a time. And remember, the love that's meant for you won't make you beg for it.